When you have a solved decision tree, all you need to do is run it. You don't need to think about it anymore. You don't need to worry about what you're going to do. You've already identified what you're going to do. There's no need to fret over this anymore. There's no need to waste any more of your time even thinking about it because you're confident in what you want to do. Move on with your day. Hey everybody. We wanted to make a video on decision theory. Decision theory is something that you use a lot when you need to make tough decisions, hence decision theory. In disasters, in emergencies, whenever you're part of a large organization, you're leading a country, whatever, you sometimes have to make really tough decisions, and there's actually a methodology, there's a way that you can go about finding out what the best decision is in the situation as objectively as possible. There's a lot of flowcharts in this, there's a lot of math potentially, and you can actually solve out what the most correct thing to do is. So we talk a lot about, hey, this is a tough situation. What do you do? What do you do? And I thought we'd give you the tools and how to do that. With that in mind, fairly recently, a student came to me with an interesting case that I thought would apply very well to giving you kind of like a very simple intro decision. To them, this was a very difficult situation. And when applying some basic decision theory to it, you come to a very straightforward answer, which made their day, considerably easier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay out this case for you, and then I'm going to break down how you would apply decision theory to this case, what the relevant and irrelevant information is, and we'll make up some flowcharts examples. So the example in case, a student, what happened to them a few weeks prior to the thing that happened where they have to make decisions, they lost more than 10 of their family members. More than 10 of their family members died overseas in one of the war zones around the world. I'm not going to give out specific details because that doesn't really matter, but they lost more than 10 of their family members in the span of basically 1-2 weeks in war zones around the world. This distress resulted in them needing to seek further medical help. They essentially had to seek out mental health specialists. They were significantly distressed. And in this condition, they decided to ask a friend to go take their midterm for them. So they asked their friend to impersonate them in a university midterm, which resulted in their friend getting caught. Once their friend was caught, they then went to their professor and they confessed that they did it, trying to own up to it. After they confessed to their professor, months passed, and then the professor didn't get back to them with anything. And their question to me was, what should I do? Should I wait it out and see if there's no response? What's going to happen? Should I go ask the professor and follow up? What do I do about this? So that's essentially their question. Now, let's talk about what's irrelevant in this and what's relevant. The ethical considerations on whether or not what they did was right or wrong is irrelevant. If I'm advising someone on what sort of decision to make, what is relevant is, from their perspective, what they consider to be relevant. Now, there are such things as ethics clauses in disaster management, and if someone violates something, then or another professional in this would sort of be forced to step back and say, sorry, I can't advise on this, it's illegal, it's whatever, and then etc. In this case, this student is not part of the institutions that I teach at. They're not one of my students directly. This just happens to be a student that I know, and I don't have any sort of obligation here. There is definitely academic dishonesty involved, but there's no crime. It's for a different administration to handle. It's not really my problem, so I don't really have a personal ethics obligation. So the ethics of this aren't really relevant. Another thing that's not really relevant, anything that happened in the past that has already been decided for you is not really relevant. So what you get to is, where does the decision point start? So whenever you map out a complex decision, what you want to do is get all the factors out and kind of go forward in time and figure out what all the different variables are going to be. So in this case, the start of this decision is, does the professor get back to the student or not? And this is not actually something that you have effect over. In decision theory, the way you would do this is you would start off your flowchart basically with a chance node. So it's a node that would indicate that there's a percentage chance that it goes this way or it goes this way or whatever. There could be 3 or 4 different things that could happen, but you basically have an uncertainty node that leads into different paths. Now, based on this chance node, you essentially have 2 outcomes broadly. The first outcome would be that the professor does get back to the student. They go in front of some form of tribunal or some sort of committee or some sort of university institution that says, well, why'd you do that, and follows up with disciplinary action. There's that pathway. And then there's the pathway of professor forgets about it and nothing basically happens. There's the two pathways there. Once you've had your node, you want to expand forward. And at that point, you hit what's known as a decision point. So we break each of these down. If you get to the situation where there is no follow-up, nothing happens, what do you decide? This is situation one. In situation one, you could choose to do nothing and hope it all blows over. Do nothing is always an option in virtually any decision. Keep in mind that deciding to do nothing is a decision in of itself. So that's always a relevant choice in any disaster, in any situation. There's do nothing as an option. And then there's do something, and the something could be a bunch of different things. Now, in this case, the student basically identified two options, a do nothing option and a check up and see what the progress is on their disciplinary matter as the second option. They didn't voice any other option as a realistic option. So that's basically two decision points. Now, you could do any number of things, but for whatever reason, there's two options here. Fair enough. Once you have that, you can then explore, well, based on what I do, what are the expected outcomes? So if I do nothing, the expected outcome of them doing nothing and me doing nothing is A, basically nothing happens, or B, something appears out of nowhere months down the road because it appears they were doing something, but I just didn't know about it. Those are basically the two different things that can happen in that situation. So we'll just pause that for now. I'm going to kind of explore the rest of this chart and we'll get back to each decision after. Now on the do something, you have a few different results that can happen from this. If the individual actually just forgot about it and you do something, you could reinitiate a disciplinary process that you had previously narrowly avoided. That may or may not be in your best interest. You may want to do that because you feel as if you did something wrong and you want to pay penance for it or something. You may want to avoid that because you may have gone, oh, well, you know what? I think I did my job of confessing, and if they don't want to pursue it, I don't want to poke the bear, whatever. There's a bunch of different justifications for each decision you can give. But the point is that you have on the do something angle, there's a bunch of different results that can happen, and you can look at pros and cons to each one. So you map that out. Okay. Other pathway now. Going back to the beginning, at the start, where nothing comes of it, let's assume that a disciplinary meeting basically happens. So what do I do in the meeting is the other question. You now have a decision that you can make. In the meeting, there are different sorts of stories you can tell. You can choose to say nothing. You can choose to tell the story of your mental health situation, trauma with family, etc. And that you can choose to lie. You can choose to pin it all on your friend for some reason, whatever. Like there's different decisions of sort of how you can go about doing this. And each of those has various pros and cons. Now, in this case, the individual decided, actually, before they even talked to me, that in the event that nothing happened, the professor didn't come back to them, they were just going to seal their lips, say nothing happened, and, make like it never happened because they'd done what they wanted. And they decided that if the disciplinary action occurred, that they would essentially just be truthful, give out their story, and sort of leave it in the fate of the people deciding because it is what it is, and they just wanted to just be truthful and be honest and get it over with. And they were happy with accepting the consequences with both of those actions. So essentially their decision had been made. If you have a decision tree where at all the decision nodes, you have already decided what you want to do, and the chance nodes are out of your control, then you've solved the decision tree. When you have a solved decision tree, all you need to do is run it. You don't need to think about it anymore. You don't need to worry about what you're going to do. You've already identified what you're going to do. You know that in this situation, you're going to do this, and then in this situation, you're going to do this. And you've come to that conclusion. There's no need to fret over this anymore. There's no need to essentially waste any more of your time even thinking about it because you're confident in what you want to do. Move on with your day. And this is essentially the advice that I gave and that I would give to what I've given frequently to clients in some of these situations. It's sometimes people just need some help mapping out their decision path, and they actually know what they want to do, but they haven't put it in front of their face. And they go, no, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that, or I'm going to do that based on what happens, and I'm good with that. I'm like, okay, so what else do you have to consider? Well, nothing. Okay, so why aren't you happy about that? Oh, I guess I am. Well, excellent. The value of using decision trees or learning about decision theory can help you take very difficult decisions, distill them down to their core fundamentals, and sometimes they actually end up pretty simple. Now, there are more complex decisions with way more variables and way more combinations that we can get into. And in the future video, I think we will look at some more complex things. You can have a lot of fun with dice and what happens if you roll a 2 or roll a 6 or whatever. You can have a lot of fun with that with decision trees. But still, I think that in general, getting used to this sort of exercise can give people more confidence in working through these sort of things in their life and making some of the more difficult things less difficult. In the world, the higher up you get in an organizational hierarchy, the closer you get to being the CEO of a company, the closer you get to being the governor of a state or the premier of a province or the president or prime minister of a country, whatever, the higher you get up in a hierarchy, the more pressure is put on you to make decisions purely based on logic and less on emotion. There is, in many disasters, the chief decision maker, which will usually be an incident commander in some form, will basically be asked to make decisions under incredible pressure where there's a lot of push for them to make what may be an emotional judgment, but to not and make a snap decision right now that is as logical as possible. If you are that person, you're likely already utilizing decision theory. If you're not, it's probably good to use it a bit or get used to it because it might help you make less errors. If you're someone that is advising these people, or you're advising the people that advise these people, or you're somebody that wants to move up in an organization, the more you move up, the more you're going to be asked to do things where this helps. And the more you want to move up, the better you know this, the better you can understand how your boss or your boss's boss or your bosses, etc., how they think. If you're able to essentially provide someone advice which has already worked out all of the parts that they have to consider, and they just look at it and go, yep, got it, good, you become much more promotable much more quickly. That skill set is incredibly valuable. So I wanted to make this video as an initial sort of entry point, very simple, basic scenario with a traumatic event for the student, of course. But as far as the complexity of the decision is concerned, it is a fairly simple scenario. To give you guys an intro and let us know your thoughts. And if you have random decisions that you want to throw our way that we can put up and test, we'd love to hear them. This sort of theory can be applied to almost anything. We can look at how it works, look at how it breaks, try to make it succeed, try to make it fail, do all sorts of stuff. It's a lot of fun. So let us know what you think and have a good day, guys.